Hello, wonderful Moss flutists. I hope everybody's well. Here we are introducing the fast etude for this year's region audition. This is by Giuseppe Gariboldi. Gariboldi, similar to Anderson, was a flutist, also quite an accomplished flutist. His years were 1833 to 1905. He was an Italian flutist and great composer as well. Similar to Anderson, he wrote pieces for himself to help him with kind of showing off his own skills, as well as working on other skills. Perhaps he would have passed this along to maybe some colleagues or some students of his, and then eventually they would be published. So different from what you did in the Anderson, or what we're doing in the Anderson, is faster, most definitely. This is an Allegro Brilliante. The word Allegro means brisk or bright, and Brilliante means also bright. So he's being pretty redundant about that, but he's also being so very definite by writing Allegro Brilliante. It's pretty obvious what he wants in here. This also comes from a larger body of work, just like the Anderson did. This comes from number 9. It's number 9 from Opus 132. I've made 3 recordings of this. I recorded it slower in a subdivision. Actually, I used a subdivision for all 3 of the recordings. The first recording is at 120 per 8th note, and then I used 152 per 8th note, and then 180 is the fastest tempo. These are the subdivisions for the tempo markings that are on the page. Couple things that I've noticed some students have had questions on. 3/8 time. The top number of a time signature always tells you the amount of beats in each measure. That's actually the easiest part of a time signature. What I'm finding is people are having difficulty understanding the concept or the idea or the meaning behind the bottom number of the time signature, which is an 8. The bottom number for a time signature is always telling you what type of note is going to get 1 beat. In this particular case, since it's an 8, it means that the 8th note is going to get 1 beat. You all know that if you're in 4/4, you have 4 beats to a measure. That's the easy part of the time signature. But the more informational part of the time signature is the bottom number. The bottom number in 4/4 is a 4, and it means that a quarter note will get 1 beat. If you have a 2 down at the bottom, it means a half note will get 1 beat. If you have a 16 down at the bottom, it means a 16th note will get 1 beat. But in this particular case, you've got 3 beats to a measure. The 8th note receives 1 beat. So if I were to start some counting in the first measure, there's an 8th note, beat 1. 2 sets of 16th notes, 2 and 3 and. 2 16th notes are equal to the duration of an 8th note, thus the 2 and 3 and. If we skip down to measure 8, I've already done this one for you. There's 3 8th notes in the measure. You've got beat 1, 2, and 3. Again, I've already done measure 13 for you. You've got 6 8th notes in a row. 2 8th notes are equal to 1 8th. 2 16th notes are equal to 1 8th note. 1 and 2 and 3 and. If we look at measure, I'll put it in measure 18. 1 and 2 and 3. That's just the opposite of what you have in the very beginning, where you start with an 8th note. Super simple. If you look at measure 20, which is right here, 8th notes. 1, 2, 3. If you look at measure 8, which is here, you have a disconnect using a flag, an 8th note flag, which is that little kind of hanging, dangly thing off of the 8th note. It's called a flag. And then the publisher uses a beam. A beam is a connective piece that connects 2 notes. In this particular case, you have an 8th note beam. So if you look at measure 20, even though the counting is exactly the same as measure 8, the publishers use something a little bit different. It all has to do with phrasing. The breath marks are fairly explanatory in here. You do have some that are printed already. I've already written these little lifts in the first couple of measures. You won't even notice it depending on what tempo you're at. You can eliminate a lot of those breath marks actually by playing just a little bit faster. Just a little bit faster. You're in the key of B flat major, so it's a very celebratory key. You do change keys at measure 17. You're actually going to be playing in the key of G minor, and then you play in the key of A minor, and then it takes you back into G minor, A minor, and then you eventually make your way back to F major. So you do have a little bit of variety. Some dynamics that you need to know about. You have a subito dynamic. In some cases, you're starting out forte at the very, very beginning. 17, subito dynamic to piano. And then as you progress through, 30, 31, 32, measure 32 is a crescendo to forte and a subito piano. The subito piano takes you almost all the way to the end, just until you hit that crescendo to the very last note. So lots of scale patterns. This is the reason why we do scales and some arpeggiated patterns. So that's pretty much it in here for now. I would say, again, keep your metronome handy because you don't want to be rushing any of this, and you also don't want to be dragging it. Again, it's very celebratory. Happy preparation.